Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Manic Pixie Dream podcast. Today we have podcast co-host, Kaylin Alyn here to talk about being single and dating and all of that fun stuff. Naturally, because guess what? She's the host of a podcast called Single AF. That is her plug for today. I will mention right now instead of at the beginning like I normally do. Anyways, but she is here and she is going to talk about her thoughts on dating and give her insights on self-care and self-love and getting to know herself after being in a long-term relationship. She has a lot of fun and interesting things to say that it's really fun and enjoyable to listen to if you stick around. So listen and enjoy and have a lovely day. Hello and welcome to the Manic Pixie Dream podcast.
Woo.
My guest, Kaylin
Alyn.
Kaylin Alyn.
Yep.
Sorry.
It's okay. No one knows how to pronounce it. It's spelled very weird.
Really?
It's
Alyn?
Alyn.
Ooh.
So a lot of people say Alyn.
That's like the Game of Thrones spelling of it.
Yeah, it's Gaelic.
Yeah.
Look at you.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
What's up, girl? How's it going? You got the giggles, huh?
Oh, no.
I have that effect on people.
You do?
Yeah. They just look
Really?
at me and laugh.
Yeah. That just happened. I don't know what it is.
Oh, man. I've learned to just appreciate it, but as a kid, that was tough.
Well, so you grew up being funny as a kid?
Yeah.
I'm guessing.
Yeah, I've always been just a ham. My favorite thing to do as a kid was like at family events and stuff would be to get in front of, I'd be like, everybody gather around. And then I'd put on shows and I would do impressions and I'd like try to make everybody laugh because I was a total, and still am, attention whore. And then slowly that developed into, now I do stand-up comedy and that's like the thing. So
I could imagine you being very good at that. How's that going?
I just started it actually. I mean, I
Really?
did a lot of improv before and I did a lot of acting before, but this is the first time where I've actually gotten up on stage and I'm figuring it out. It's really fun. I'm taking a class right now and it's all women. It's
Really?
a women's stand-up class. It's called Pretty Funny Women.
Who's teaching it?
Her name's Lisa Sunstedt and she's been in the game for like 30 years. She's been teaching this class for 15. And they do these great showcases. So it's like a really good opportunity for me to get some stage like on the big stages. So our grad shows at Flappers, we do a on November 29th. Not that anybody's going to want to go to a showcase grad, but anyway.
I'll go to your showcase.
It's fun.
I had a showcase once.
Did you do
Once upon a
stand-up?
time. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, I did a little stand-up showcase.
That's so cool. How did
Yeah.
it go?
Good. And then I started sleeping with the guy who was doing the who was the
Booking or no?
the MC.
Oh,
Where
the
guy-
host.
The host, yeah.
Yeah. How did that go? Comedians, that's a 50-50 shot of either being really great or really not.
I guess like on just like on a superficial scale, if you start sleeping with somebody that you do a show with and the show went well.
Yeah.
Like
I can see that.
Yeah, like I think that Geely was a big winner because Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez.
They seem to have a lot of fun,
Yeah,
even though no one
exactly.
watching it did.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. There's a phrase called Hober October. Yeah. Hober October.
Okay.
Yeah. That's when you try to, it's a hoe sobriety during the month of October, and I did not succeed at that at all. I was a major hoe in October, but next year, Hober October 2019.
So you stopped being a hoe for...
You try. That's the attempt, but I did not succeed in that. I was a hoe.
See, I think it's sacrilegious to do that kind of thing in October instead of during Lent.
Right? Well, not only
And-
that, it's like the month of Halloween. I mean, geez,
Yeah.
it's just ripe for the fucking.
It's so bizarre that people like wait to do like on
I think it's just because it was a word. It's just a word like, oh, Hober, and it rhymes. It has nothing to do with like anything other than it's kind of a catchy title.
But Hovember.
Hovember. That's true, but that's when you are a hoe.
Hocember.
We could just really add it. February slutty.
Hotober.
Yeah. Basically, every month for me is a time to be a little promiscuous.
That's my favorite.
Hoyuary.
That's
I like that.
Hoyuary.
June is just June gloom. That's when you reflect back on your life for the previous 6 months and regret it all.
That makes sense because that's my birth month.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. So that's cool that you did stand up. I've slept with a few comedians myself, and it's been okay. You know, afterwards you're like, what's up, man? You know, like at the shows and stuff. But
You seem like a very like a go-getter kind of person. And so what are your like dating techniques? Because it seems like you really like to date and you really like gentlemen.
Yeah, I like the male species. You know, I was only with one dick until I was 28 years old. So I felt like when I got out of that relationship, I really just had some time to make up for. So I've been on a dick journey for the last 2 years, and it's been fun. It's been a wild ride. Wild ride.
Okay, so which?
What are my techniques? I'm just good looking and fun. Yeah, I don't know. They come to me. I have asked out a couple guys. I've only been turned down once, and it was like a business. It was like someone I worked with, and he was like, "I don't think that's a good idea." And I was like, "I think you're missing out, but you're probably right."
So how do you go about asking a guy out?
I said, so this in particular situation, we worked together. Like he was like part-time, I was full-time. So he was like not there all the time. You'd come into the office to do some work, and we would just flirt the entire time. And so I just sent him a text or a message or whatever. And I was like, do you want to flirt outside of work sometime? And then that's when he said, basically, no. No, I don't. No, he said, I don't think that's a good idea. And I was like, well, you're probably right. But you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And now I book his podcast. So you never know where things are going to lead. I don't remember how I asked out the other guy. I don't remember it. But texting, it's a lot easier. Thank God for texting. I can't imagine doing that shit in person. But anytime a guy, honestly, anytime a guy asks me out, unless I'm just like absolutely not interested, like even if it's just like a lukewarm, like, okay, I'll say yes if they have the balls to ask me out. Because I mean, what's wrong with getting, a cocktail or a cup of coffee? Yeah, Yeah. And who knows? Maybe we just vibe really well. But usually it hasn't been the case. Like I've gone out with my Uber driver once because
Uber drivers are fun as like those little like
you can have like a
little fling.
Yeah, a 20-minute fling.
I've never like done anything and stuff, but like at the end of a night and that sort of thing, like if I'm like talking to like an Uber driver and stuff and they also do weed deliveries, I don't know, you might as well.
Yeah.
But once like I had this Uber driver and he was really cool and stuff. And like we like followed each other on like Instagram and stuff, which is a mistake. But then
which is a mistake.
That's like be wary of the connections you make. You know what I mean? I just think like leading people on is a real challenge. You know what I mean? You don't want to lead somebody on, and you really want to set clear like, I never want to see you again after this. So maybe following each other on Instagram isn't a good idea.
I haven't had that experience, but I'm pretty good at a gentle letdown.
Really?
Where I'm like, I go, because we'll usually we'll go out or we'll have sex or we'll do whatever, and then I'm like, I'm over it. I don't want to do that again. And I'll usually say, you know what, that was really fun and all, but I think I would just be. I think I would be more satisfied with a friendship. And if you're not into that, that's fine. Ball's in your court. But if you ever want to just like go hang out as friends, that's about all I can offer you right now. Yeah. And then a lot of those guys, I'm friends with a ton of them on Instagram, and like we keep up with each other and stuff. And every once in a while I'll get a, if I post something a little, a little racy, I'll get a DM like, damn girl, you killing me, that kind of thing. And I'm like, LOL. And then I just move on. But I haven't had too many, there's only been like one or two where I've had to be like, I'm done talking to you now. Yeah. Goodbye.
It's hard to set those boundaries, and you don't want to. I mean, the thing is with me, I never want to hurt anybody's feelings. Yeah. And I want to, I don't know. And I wish there were relationships can be this land where people don't get hurt. And
it's just part of the game. Yeah. And truthfully, too, like you can't avoid pain. No. And it can just cause you more issues in the future if you don't just rip that Band-Aid off. Yeah.
I just feel like sometimes with guys, if I'm like, I don't really see something with you, and but I really like you and I really enjoy your company. Do you want to be friends? They're just like, no, thanks.
Yeah. But and that's a shot I have to be willing to take, And a lot of the times we haven't hung out.
Does that ever make you feel like
bad?
Yeah. No. I mean, it's a more complex. it makes me feel bad because I feel like people don't like me. And it's like, and I kind of, you know what I mean? Like I don't know. And I just feel like I feel like just like maybe the men feel this way too, but everybody has to have like a cell. You know what I mean? I feel like maybe women see these cells a little bit more clearly than men do. But like,
explain what you mean by a cell.
Like looks, smarts, humor.
Oh, something that's like your attractive quality that kind of brings them in. Yeah, sure, your hook.
Yeah, and so and it's like I kind of feel like my cell isn't humor or intelligence. It's the other thing. And so if I want a guy to hang out with me,
sure,
and sex is not on the table, they don't want to hang out with me, but I want to hang out with them, and I want to spend time with these guys, and I want to have fun, but I don't want to fuck them.
Yeah,
so
like,
come over.
Yeah.
Stay away from me.
Yeah, it can be misconstrued.
Yeah,
for sure. I think but I've always just been a big tomboy where I can hang out with the dudes. So my cell is more of a sense of humor and like hanging out. So, but I'm really good at sex too. So there's always that.
Oh, really? What are your?
I don't have anything. I'm just good. I don't know. I'm good at taking a dick, I guess. I don't know. Some people are good artists and some people can parallel park, and this is my thing. I don't know.
What do you think makes you so good at sex?
That I enjoy it.
I think that's the most important thing.
I enjoy it and I want to be there. Yep. And also I take control over my side of the equation. Like, in other words, like my orgasm is on me. Like I want you to do your best. Like put that effort into the mix. But I'm taking care of myself in the process. Because I'm not going to put it on them because, not to say that they don't know what they're doing, but every woman is so different. So I just take care of myself. I'm not saying that they're not trying, but.
So 6 months ago, I had a friendship with a comedian and he just kind of came over and he just sort of acted a little more towards than was savory.
Okay.
And I guess just like with setting boundaries and with sex and that sort of thing, it's just like the lines can be so, I mean, not to like that like blurred lines or whatever, but
it's true. Because every person has their own,
right,
limitations and what's okay and what's not. And
I feel like working in a creative industry, we're working with creative people, you know what I mean, on all kinds. And I think that a lot of creative people are very hypersexual. Sure. And which
or at least we're in this world, so we see it a lot. Yeah, for sure. And it's something that I think people in the industry have to engage in probably a lot more than the average person and stuff. And so I guess like a conversation I would love to have is just talking about being sexual women in a creative industry. And just in a professional sense too. Like,
okay. Is that okay? Can we talk about?
Sure.
Okay.
This is, right. I try to be very, my podcast that I have is about sex, dating, and relationships. And I do try to be an open book about it. Because I do feel like part of the issue is that sex is taboo, and so we don't talk about it. And then we get into the bedroom, and suddenly communication is everything. Yeah. And because there are boundaries you need to set, and there are things you need to be like, I don't want to do that, or I'm not comfortable with that, or whatever. And if you can't have that conversation outside of the bedroom, then it's going to be a lot harder to have those kinds of conversations when you're in the heat of the moment, because a lot of the blood isn't in your brain anymore. It's rushing to other parts of the body. Yes. So, I'm not saying that everyone needs to be just like, I sucked a dick last night. It doesn't have to be just this really brash thing, but it is a part of life. It's a natural part of life. We eat, we shit, we drink water. Like, these are just natural human things that we do, and we have sex. But I can talk about going to Trader Joe's and the food that I bought, and I can talk about how much sleep I got the night before. I can talk about these human, experiences, but for some reason, sex is this thing you just like.
But I think that's. I don't think like the whole like don't talk about it because it's nasty and wrong is I don't like that, but I like that it's a sacred thing, and then I like that sex is on a pedestal. You know what I mean? I actually don't think that that's what's wrong.
And I do think that a lot of people like don't talk about it, not because it's this thing to be revered necessarily, but it is something that people are like embarrassed by, or it's not something that you just like openly talk about. I mean, even women talking about their periods, and it's like something that you don't, you don't just come out and say,
I'm always so surprised because there are some guys, for example, like with like farting and stuff, there are some guys that are like so cool about it. Like you can fart in front of a guy and they're
like laughing about it.
Yeah. And then there are some guys though that they're like, they'll put you in a fucking Uber. Like they'll send you home. Like, they're like, they'll never want to see you again. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Those are not the kind of men that I want to,
Yeah. And, but it's like, for me, all guys sort of seem the same. So it's like, how can you tell the difference between the guys that don't care if you fart versus the guys that do care if you fart?
Well, it sounds like farting is a great litmus test because if you pass gas or, something that happens during sex, it's a natural thing, it's queefing. And it's just like this, it's always this thing that's just like this very shocking, like, huh, and if they're like, ew, or whatever, it's like,
get off me!
Yeah. It's
Goodbye
just,
forever.
Yeah, it's just, because the thing is, there's so many men, that it's like, I think that is actually becomes kind of a problem because there are so many that I don't really spend the time to really develop relationships with them. I'll just like move on to the next one if it's not like perfect, and they're never going to be perfect. But yeah, for me, if that's how they respond to a natural bodily function. I mean, it's one thing too if you're like, hey, pull my finger, or if you just like accidentally like let a little toot out. Like there's two different kinds of,
Yeah.
But I guess it depends on like, what kind of situation are you into? What do you want? Do you want just like a really hot, just sexual, fiery experience?
But those don't happen easily. And this, things really have to come together really perfectly for there to be like a great one night stand. I mean, I just feel like for like a one night stand to like happen without a hitch and that sort of thing, like the only time I ever had a one night stand thinking it was going to be a one night stand was like with this guy, and we met on Tinder obviously and stuff. And it was like one of my first Tinder dates. And it was like, I think this guy like managed consent actually to like a T. You know what I mean? I actually think this guy, like how he behaved, like was actually like a really great example of how to hook up with somebody and how to manage
What
consent.
about it did you like? Like what's some of the behaviors so that...
he was just, I don't know, like generally good looking, money.
But how does that to do with consent?
And, but later on at his place and that sort of thing, like we got back to his place and stuff and I was totally like enamored with him and that sort of thing. It was like, he was just like this really good, like it was just a really good date, what I mean? And so we're like back on his place and we're like making out and stuff. And then like, I realized like, I actually really want to have sex with him. Like I really want that to happen.
Right.
And, but then I was just like, like it was just like, it was almost just like this Monty Python thing where I just like kept getting dressed and like running to the door and stuff and like not wanting to do it.
You kept trying to stop it?
Yeah. And then, but like he was cool. Like it wasn't like he was chasing me around and stuff. Like he was like, okay, well, if you're ready to leave, I guess it's time for you to, you don't want to leave? Oh, you want to stay? You want to hook up? Okay,
yeah, he was it's letting you guide the situation.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, exactly. I was in control the entire time and stuff. So I think that's sort of like his, attitude was really like, wasn't, like he needed it to happen, but he wanted it to happen. And it was just like, everything was perfect.
Yeah.
But it's like, that was like a one night in my life kind of a thing for that to happen. And I know going on my next date, I can't expect that. You know what I mean? I can't expect a guy to act exactly like that guy did. I can't expect the date to be exactly like it was.
Well, not all the specifics of it, but I'm a big believer that your words matter. And so, for me, I'm not going to, if it's something that I want to experience, then I'll verbalize it. And if it's something that I don't want to experience, I'm not going to put it out into the universe, so to speak. So, and because of that, I've had tons of great sexual experiences. Like I don't talk poorly about men. Like I used to say shit like, like all men want is sex. And like, I don't even know. I can't even remember them because I've really stopped saying things like that. And because of that, I have had great one night stands, and I didn't necessarily go into them like they were one night stands, but I always come in with I never come in with an expectation that it's going to go anywhere. I'm like, if I'm doing this, it's because I just want to have fun, and I want to have some sex. But if I don't, then I don't. It's that simple. But I've had to have a few experiences where I had sex when I was like lukewarm about it, and I never felt great about it the next day.
Right.
And I think those experiences are important though, because now I'm realizing that, and maybe I have less sex, but the sex that I do have is way better, and the partners that I'm having it with are way better, and it's just a better experience. But I'm just very blunt. I'll be like, do you want to come upstairs? Do you want to go fool around? Like, I don't, because I think a lot of guys, especially right now, for good reason, are on edge. And so they're doing this, like, I don't want to like make any assumptions. I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to do something I'm not supposed to. So I just try to be very vocal about, if I want it, I let them know. And if anything happens in the bedroom that I'm not down with, I just like, I'm not down with that. But that hasn't happened really. It's only been a couple times. Not big into ass play. So I usually put my foot down on that personally.
I can
to
imagine
each
that
their
being
own.
very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You seem like, you know what you want, and you know how to go about getting it. And that, and I think a lot of women don't have that, and especially in relationships. And I think a lot of the Me Too stuff that has happened wouldn't have happened if women knew how to navigate those situations better.
Sure.
And I know that there are situations that I've been in, kind of even recently, what I mean? Even after all I've been through, you know what I mean?
Yep.
That, and they happen to everybody. And, and so it's just like,
and I've had some of those experiences too.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just like a perfect clean slate for me. And I've definitely had enough experiences now that, that it's not like I've just had sex with like 2 or 3 people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I've had enough now where I can say that I've had enough experiences. But the biggest thing for me, and it is a general broad thing that probably touches on every aspect of your life, whether it's in business or love or any kind of relationships with other people. It all starts inside, and it sounds corny, but for me the biggest thing was coming to terms with who I am, the type of person that I wanted to be, and learning to love that person.
Yeah.
And the times where I did not feel good after either a sexual interaction or even just a dating interaction, the times that I did not feel good afterwards was because I was aiming more to control the situation by trying to please the other person, rather than trying to please myself. And we've been taught in a lot of ways throughout our lives to put other people before ourselves, and especially women. Like motherhood is a prime example of that, where we always put our kids, and I'm not saying ours like we have them, but this is for women, putting your kids before yourself. And then we have a lot of sad, depressed mothers, or when the kids finally graduate and the kids aren't there in the house anymore, they're very depressed. They have no, they don't have a job maybe, or they don't have a purpose because their whole life has been for someone else.
Yeah.
And, I'm a big believer in the analogy of when you're on an airplane and the oxygen masks come down, you put your mask on first before you can put anybody else's mask on. And I do a lot of self-reflection when I'm in a dating scenario. Why am I doing this? Am I doing this because I'm lonely? If so, canceling the date. If I'm doing this because I'm sad, am I doing this because I'm bored? All these things are not because I'm necessarily like excited to hang out with them, or because I'm excited to have sex with someone, or because even being horny, I feel like can be a risky move sometimes because you're not necessarily thinking straight. So for me, it's self-reflection. And that means sometimes you have to ask yourself tough questions like, am I lonely right now? And then sometimes I've cried in my room and I've felt that loneliness, and I just realized that like hooking up with someone that night was not going to change that.
Yeah.
All it's going to do really in the long run is probably make me feel even lonelier.
Yeah.
But that's also what I mean too. Like when I'm having sex with someone, my orgasm is I'm not saying it's responsibility, but like I'm there so that I can get off, and I want him to get off. I want us both to have a great time, and I think we can serve each other, but at the same time, like, I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to make sure that I get what I want out of that situation, right? And if it means that personally, I'm not into oral, but let's say that I was, then I'm going to ask him to go down on me. Like, I know what I want, and I know, like, worst case scenario, I bet if you ask yourself, like, what's the worst case scenario if I speak up right now? It's that he's going to leave and he's not going to want me.
Yeah.
And why is that such a bad thing? Is it because it makes us feel less than? It makes us feel like, well, if he doesn't want me, then I'm not good enough. Like, these are all questions. But if you know that you're awesome, and you are, and you know that you're beautiful, and you are, and you know that you have a lot to offer, which you obviously do, then, well, who cares if this one jabroni that you met on an app, like, doesn't, isn't the one, or doesn't work out, or if you have to kick him out or whatever. I mean, hopefully it never gets to that point, but it really is not the end of the world. In fact, you'll probably feel more empowered because you listened to your instincts and you listened to what was right for you than had you gone through with it, had sex with someone that you weren't super excited about, and you shut the door as they leave, and you're just like, fuck, why did I do that?
Yeah.
So, it's a journey. Don't beat yourself up. Like, if it happens, take the lessons.
Yeah.
Take the lessons. Pat yourself on the back that you learned something. Hey, you got laid. Could be worse. But like, it's not the end of the world. And, if you feel bad about yourself afterwards, I highly recommend, I've had to do this a lot myself, where I get out my journal and I write the things that I really like about myself. And that turns it around in like 2-3 minutes. I'm like centered again. I remember who I am. I remember what I'm here for, what I'm doing. And then it was just 10-15 minutes out of my life, or 2-3 hours if it was a date, and all this stuff. There's so much more to my life than that. And it's the same thing with work. If a boss treats you like shit, or you do something that you feel bad about or whatever, it's all the same thing. It's just loving yourself, being cool with yourself, and who gives a shit if they don't like you? I mean, it's easier said than done, but I think that's a big thing for leadership too, which, we've talked about. But when I'm on set and I'm ordering these men around and stuff, like, it used to be way harder for me when I was in college because they were all my friends and I didn't want them to not like me.
Oh.
Right. And so I'd be like, hey guys, can we, like, maybe we should just move this along? And I was just so passive because I didn't want them to, like, oh, fuck Caitlin, like, what a bitch, right? And I was so afraid that they wouldn't like me. And now I've gotten to the point where I don't care because they've hired me to do a job, and I can't do my job if I'm being a little bitch, So it's like, hey, dudes, we got 10 minutes. And now the funny part is that when I am being assertive, and when I am doing my job, and when I'm not caring what they think, they like me so much more. Like, there was one time the producer of this movie that I was assistant directing, and for anybody that's listening that doesn't know, an assistant director's job is mainly keeping everything on schedule, and keeping everyone safe, and just keeping the set moving. It's
a very heavy responsibility job.
It's a huge job. The average lifespan for professional assistant director is like to 50 years old or something. It's like ridiculous. It's very, very stressful, but I actually really like it a lot. And so the producer, who is like the big man, he's the boss, he's been doing this forever, was sitting by the monitor talking to another, like a guest that was there, another big producer, and they were being loud. Like, we're trying to do a rehearsal, and I had to go over there. And I was like, guys, if you're going to talk, go outside.
Yeah.
We're about to go for picture. And they're like, ooh, okay, and they kind of laughed, like in a playful way, and they're like, all right. And then later we're at lunch, and I was like, hey guys, sorry I had to be such a turd back there, but you wouldn't shut the fuck up. And they were laughing. They're like, no, I was so glad you told us to we didn't realize that they were even filming. Like, you did your job. And so that was such a confirmation in that moment for me that, like, this is how it works. Like, when you're passive, people don't respect you. I mean, that doesn't mean you have to be an asshole. I was trying to be funny. I was like, hey, I'm not trying to be a turd here, but, like, shut the fuck up. Get off stage. You're driving me insane. So, but when you're assertive and you know your place and you don't care what they think about you, 9 times out of 10, they're going to respect that, and they're going to listen more and more as it goes on, because nobody wants to listen to someone who doesn't seem like they know what they're doing. So confidence is a big thing too. And how do you build confidence? It goes right back to the self-love and all that kind of stuff.
You
I
seem
really
like you
think
know
so.
a lot about that. Was there anything that that happened to you in like your younger years that
Depression, depression and anxiety. Well, in film school, I was like top dog. I was kicking ass. Like everyone was like, Caitlin's gonna go places, and my movies all did really well, and everyone wanted me on their sets, and I was like, Queen Bee, and then I'm moving out to LA, and everyone's like, Caitlin's moving to LA, like, oh, she's gonna, and all this stuff, and I got out here, and I was like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. And no one was out here to help me. Like all my mentors, all my teachers that were in school that were like, training wheels were nowhere to be found. And my parents were like, you're on your own, thank God, And so I was just like, oh shit. And I had all of a sudden my confidence just went into the ground. And so like I was unemployed for the first 2 years out. I mean, I had like little jobs here and there.
Yeah.
I would like get jobs and I would get so stressed out and so anxious that I got so sick one time I had to go to the emergency room or the urgent care. Cause I'd lost like 30 pounds in like 3 weeks cause I couldn't eat and I was like throwing up cause I was so nervous. And, so I'd like get to work and I would literally like, if I stood up, I'd like get lightheaded and the doctor was like, you have to eat food, but I couldn't eat because I was so nervous. So like I went through all that stuff and I was just like, this is not me. Like I know that I'm like a ballsy chick for lack of a better word, but and I knew that because I was in directing school, like I was, this like bossy, for lack of a better word, but I was in control of things, and then all of a sudden to feel just so not like myself. I started just like a self-help journey, I guess.
Yeah.
And that was about 2 years ago. And when I got dumped by my boyfriend 2 years ago.
So was that kind of the catalyst for
That was a big one that got me doing the things that I want to do.
Because you were with him for 8 years? I
was with him for 5 years. I just was a late bloomer when it came to dating and sex. So I met him when I was 24, I think.
Oh, okay.
So those numbers just about add up, I think. But yeah, I was with him for a long time, and we're still really good friends. He's actually like my neighbor now, and we like hang out, and I'm cool with his girlfriend. But I just kind of lost myself in the shuffle of everything and getting dumped. I mean, it was hard. I cried a lot, and I held onto my pillow and like sucked my thumb like a little infant. But like, I got up, I pulled myself up, I got out of, I'm still in debt, but for the most part, I got out of a big chunk of that debt and, figured out who I want to be. And I don't think you're ever there. There's always going to be another thing that you want to do, another thing you want to accomplish, a new thing or new, otherwise life would be really boring.
Yeah.
But yeah, I started doing a lot of, studying a lot of metaphysics. Actually, a lot of where like science and spirituality kind of meet.
Really?
Yeah, that's been really big for me.
So what?
So like if you've heard of the law of attraction, now granted that's like The Secret is like the McDonald's version of like the law of attraction. It's like that's probably the most famous thing that people have heard of in terms of that subject, but it's also probably the most like watered down, frozen meat version of it. But I got started, there's a book and I highly recommend it. It's a self-help book, but it's like by this really cool chick. It's called You Are a Badass. And I just happened to find that book when I was at my lowest, and I started reading it, and it just like woke me up, got me a lot of insight. And it's written by a woman, and it's not literally for women, but you can tell her intention is definitely addressed to women or people who maybe minorities or anybody who doesn't feel that could be anybody that just has lost their sense of self and wants to kick ass. So I highly recommend that book.
Okay.
You Are a Badass. And she has another one called You Are a Badass at Making Money. And that one's really good too.
What was the big message that you got from the book?
Appreciation is key. Talk more about what you want, not as much about what you don't want, or basically like don't complain and don't explain is a good way of putting that.
Yeah. We were talking about like gratitude the other day, and about how like, I know that like sometimes I can get into like this total like pity party mode where I can feel so sorry for myself and stuff. And it's like, sometimes I just kind of have to assess what my issues are and that sort of thing. And I realize like it's all healthy. Of my problems are all like very first world and stuff. And, and
your problems are still valid though.
Yeah.
they're still valid, but it's once you get them out there, once you've assessed them, now what? Mm-hmm. And if you just keep talking about them, and I have people in my life that do this, who just complain about it. I'm like, okay, you have two options here. Either you shut the fuck up and take it, or you go and do something about it. Because just talking about it, you're spinning your wheels and nothing's going to change. So yeah, it's don't explain and don't complain. And a lot of things I've noticed this with women, and I'm generalizing always, so forgive me. This doesn't mean it's everyone, but how often have you written a work email where you ask for something and you'll say something along the lines of, I need this report by Friday. It's not a big deal. It's because I have a deadline, or you try to like explain why you've made this request. And I've noticed I've caught myself doing that. You don't need to do that. I need this email by Friday, or I need this report by Friday at 5 p.m. Thanks so much, Caitlin. Like, we do a lot where we explain ourselves, or maybe we don't want to go to a party. We got invited and we just don't want to go. And we'll go, hey, I can't make it out tonight. I'm so sorry, but like I've had gas like all day, and I tore a fingernail off, just like trying to explain, when in reality, you don't need to. It's just, hey, I'm not making it out tonight. Hope you guys have fun. Have a good night. Like, we do a lot to kind of explain or justify our bare existence of
it's almost like we're already seeing ourselves through the eyes of, sorry, the big word, society.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Before we do anything.
Yeah.
And we're already looking at how we're going to be received.
Yep.
And so I think with text messages, I know I have mine's more with texting. I get really anxious texting people, and I'm always really nervous about sounding like a bitch and stuff. Or and it's like texting is like a stressful thing for me to do it every day, and I know that like anxiety is.
It's a real thing.
Yeah, but it's like I sometimes it's just like I need to text somebody something, and I'll just like, I'm just not going to text them because this is upsetting to me, and
that's okay too. Yeah, like, that's just listening to yourself. I mean,
well, no, it's like I actually have to like text somebody.
You like have to do things, It's,
but,
yeah. But it's
so
good that you're recognizing that. And sometimes too, if I'm feeling those things, or like if I'm mad, like I'll feel like the blood like rushing to my face, I will make sure that I go for a walk, or I do something. I'll I got to take a second.
Yeah.
Because if I respond and it never turns out well, I'll respond. If I respond right away, it usually ends up turning into some kind of ordeal.
Yeah.
So
I think that's like a biggest lesson I've learned is like self-reflection, and just like having like, I know, like, it's like I can kind of like, I'm such an emotional person that I have to read my emotions before
That's
anything
good.
else. And so it's like if I'm angry and stuff, and it's like I can just sort of like, I'm so angry, and I think this person is a monster, and this person should go to jail, and I need to react in a way that is in line with this person being a monster and needs to go to jail, even though this person just forgot to give me a piece of gum. And so it's like I just kind of like, you know what, maybe I should take a day and just think about how this person didn't give me a piece of gum. Yeah. And maybe the next day I'll find that they're not a monster and they shouldn't go to jail.
Yeah, because that's usually what happens.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that like I've noticed that like I am the kind of person where it's like I need to take a few days and just think.
I think that's probably just a human thing, but the fact that you're recognizing that is huge. And that's another part of metaphysics that I've learned is the power of your emotions. I think our emotions are there for a reason, and it's to kind of tell us like where we're at. They're kind of like, when you're driving on the freeway, which I know you don't drive anymore, but I know you drove on the freeway before, but they've got those little bumps on the side of the road, right? And it's telling you, hey, you're about to drive off the road, or if you're like about to fall asleep, or you're headed off the roadway. That's what emotions are to me. It's when you're happy and you're satisfied and you're in a good mood, you're on the road and you're moving forward and things are good. If something happens and it pisses you off, it's like, hey, you're off the road. And it's easy to get back on. So, it's self-talk, it's self-soothing. It's going, okay, why am I mad? I'm mad because this person doesn't respect me. Okay, well, why does that matter if I don't care what people think about me, honestly? Well, it means that I'm not good enough, and I want them to think I'm good enough. Well, do I think I'm good enough? Yeah, I do. Okay, so really this has nothing to do with them and everything to do with me. Cool, I need to go for a walk and process this. And I'm not good at it all the time, but it's made such a huge difference in my life and my relationships. I'm a much easier going person. The other thing too, I meditate every day. big on meditation. Big on meditation.
Okay.
Big on it. What's your thoughts?
I have such a hard time with meditation, and I'm pretty dependent on church.
That's good.
But yeah, I mean, I mean, you know, you just go and you sit there for an hour, and you don't have to do anything.
Yeah, turn your phone off. Hopefully,
yeah,
kind of get out of the. You don't.
Oh geez, I know. I had music playing once, and it was not a really inappropriate song, and it was like,
oh, your phone. They're like,
and it was
the phone turned on in the middle.
Yeah.
It's like, back that ass up, girl. And you're like,
no, it was
for Jesus. Back it up for Jesus.
No, it was it was the American Pie soundtrack. So it was one of those songs.
Oh my. I'm mostly just amazed that you have the American Pie soundtrack on your phone.
I think it was just like a Spotify or something.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm stupid.
Yeah.
But yeah. And that was and I said the F word, and then I turned behind me, and there was a family behind me.
Yep.
And I just looked at who was in charge, which was the dad. You know? And I was like, I looked at the guy, and I was like, just apologize to him for swearing in front of his family, and
please forgive me. We are in church after all.
Yeah.
So do you find that is kind of a meditative experience for you then, would you say? Or is it just feeling a connection to something bigger than you?
I think the higher power thing is definitely like where it's at.
I think that's important.
I think prayer is a huge thing. I do think that we have like, you know, a creator. And I think connecting with that is really hugely important.
Sure.
But I mean, at the same time, like you know, atheism is a thing too.
Yeah, whatever you want to believe in, but the thing is that like prayer is asking and meditation is the receiving, is the idea.
Yeah, I like that.
So, and you ask whether you even realize you're doing it or not. You know, you might get stuck in traffic and you wish that you weren't in traffic. That's an ask. You know, it doesn't have to be sitting at an altar going, please, you know, cure my mother of craziness. But the meditation part is getting quiet and listening. But I was really bad at it at first too. And that was because I didn't really understand what meditation was. And I thought that I'd just sit there and like my mind had to be clear and just, you know, empty. And that's impossible. But I got started with guided meditations so that I had something to listen to and kind of focus on and not get all over the place. And then that got me very addicted to it. And now I go to an actual class at my yoga studio every week, and it's been like life-changing. I love it so much. And that's been like my church because it's like a community thing. You know, there's like 10 or 15 of us.
They're nice. They're really fun.
Wonderful. We open up, we talk about like our week and kind of things that are on our mind, what we want to let go of. And that, you know, we really get open with each other. We do this really, really intense type of breathing meditation. And then we talk about it afterwards and we just like hug and cry and like we just let it all out. And it's like so healing. But that's like that's like a big one. Usually just 15 minutes first thing in the morning.
Yeah, but it's like with the depression and anxiety, it's just like you have to. Like you have to meditate. You have to take care of yourself and put this steps into this self-love and
absolutely.
Yeah,
that gave me goosebumps.
I don't know. I don't know why I fight it. I guess like I didn't really have a family that was about therapy and about that kind of thing. And I think that they kind of always thought that sort of thing was because I always sort of needed it a little bit kind of you know.
I think most people would find value in it in different shapes and forms, and how, you know, there's so many different types of therapy and stuff too. I
just think that there are still, even in modern times, there are still a lot of families and a lot of people that you know, mental illness is, you're crazy, you're insane, you have you are an insane person and you should be in an asylum and stuff. And people still have that like, well, I don't want people to know that I struggle with depression because then they're going to know that I'm fucked up in the head. And if they know that I'm fucked up in the head, then I can't keep this facade that's been keeping my sanity alive. And so my dad was in an abusive marriage, and so he started therapy after.
Good for him.
You know, the marriage, and it was his first time like doing therapy and stuff, and it was like, and he was like in his 60s. Yeah. And you know, but it's like that's what sometimes like you have to go through that thing that you needed therapy for, you know, to show you that you need therapy.
Well, and not even but the things that you learn from therapy are really really powerful, life-changing things.
Yeah.
And those are things that you don't have to go to therapy necessarily to have those lessons, but it really does help. It can help. And it depends on the type of therapy, the type of therapist. I've found that I'm not crazy personally about therapy. I like kind of handling it myself. And again, because a lot of therapy is talking about things that have happened in the past and things that happened to you, and it can turn to this kind of victim thing. And I've yet to find a therapist that is more about, like, I'd rather have maybe like a life coach who's like, okay, here's where we're at. I
recommend you someone.
Yeah, I love that. Here's where you're at, and here's where you want to go. Like, let's figure out a way to get you there.
I can recommend you someone. Yeah. She's really great.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, she's amazing. And it's one of those things where it's like, what do you want to do this week? Well, I want to go to the gym 3 times. Yeah. Okay. When do you want to go to the gym for the first time? Yeah. How about what are you doing Monday?
Some accountability.
I'm not doing anything Monday.
Yeah.
Go on Monday. That'll be your first day at the gym. Go on Monday.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'll go on Monday. And then it's like you just start, holy shit, it's this easy. Yeah. Like, it's just about going to the gym on Monday. Yep. And but when you have anxiety and you have depression, those things.
You can talk yourself out of it pretty easily. Yeah. For sure.
But even just like kind of like, just like pinpointing those things in your day and just realizing that like doing 3 things today isn't going to be World War II is actually like a hard hump to get over.
There was a time when I was so depressed that it was like really hard for me even to get out of bed. Mm-hmm. And I remember someone, I don't know where I picked up this along the way, but they were like, set very, very low but achievable goals for yourself that day. Mm-hmm. So it was like, make your bed. And it's like, well, I can make my bed, Yeah. That's not too much.
Exactly.
Right? And then you get up and you make your bed and you feel like a little bit better, right? Because you just accomplished something. And so it's like, sometimes all I could do is just kind of clean my apartment, but I still felt way better than if I just stayed in bed not doing anything. So I think that's, a good rule of thumb, just like small attainable goals that you can, and that goes for whatever level, you're at, even if you're not depressed. Like, what can I accomplish today? I'm not going to win an Oscar tomorrow. Mm-hmm. I want to eventually, but not tomorrow. So, but I could write 10 pages. You could. Tomorrow I could get that done, or, get my homework done for my class. These like certain things that I know I can get done. Because then when you do it, that sense of accomplishment is so addicting. Yeah.
I think I can count on 2 fingers the amount of times that I've written 10 pages in a day.
It is actually a lot. 10 pages is actually quite a bit. 5 pages is enough.
There wasn't like a gun to my head and a deadline.
Yeah.
And
guns to the head do help.
They do.
I'm kidding. That's so bleak. That's so dark. I'm sorry. We're just talking about depression.
Why do I say that? Gun to my head. I don't know, because it feels like, sometimes it's like you have to have something.
Yeah, some accountability.
Yeah, written out and stuff.
Yeah.
But I just wish that there was a gun to hit my head all the time, so I would just always get stuff done or die.
Yeah. Well, you seem to be doing pretty good. You're doing a podcast. That's something that like no one is holding a gun to your head for that, and you're still getting it done. So that's impressive. Do you give yourself credit?
For what?
Well, for this, for one thing, but for anything in general, do you give yourself credit for things? Like,
you can't be a useless nothing. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's sort of like the rule of life. Like, you can't be fucking useless and you're alive. So it's like you have to be,
So, but you still should be giving yourself credit when you do things, though.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, because you got to be you're not going to, you can't expect other people to be your cheerleaders. Like, you got to be your own cheerleader, Like, sometimes, like, I paid my credit card on time this month, and I paid extra. Like, go me! I did it. Even if I do it every month, I'm still gonna try and celebrate that. Yeah. Like, I paid my rent this month in a very expensive city with money that I made. Way to go, Caitlin! You didn't fuck it up this month, and hopefully I won't in the next months either. Rent is expensive.
I know. I remember when I first moved to LA, and I was like this total bohemian, like living on couches and like subletting and stuff. And I always saw like rent and money like a video game, and they were points. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if you run out of money, then that's your points, and you're out of the game, and you're dead.
Yeah.
And stuff. And so that's how I literally looked at money and stuff. And it just like kind of became like this exciting adventure.
It is a lot. That's a really good attitude to have, because it doesn't need to. That's where I get anxiety a lot is because of money, because it's like it represents security to me.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's talk about sports and how you grew up playing sports and that
Sure.
sort of thing. And I think, so like it's kind of been proven like sports actually really help kids in development and stuff. And it helps teach leadership skills. It helps teach like being a team player and, you know, basically like you're starting out like when you're 5, you know, onward. When did you start playing sports?
Oh, probably around 5. Yeah. Not like the sports I ended up excelling in. Like I started with soccer. I was I was in the swimming pool when I was like 2 years old. Like my parents were doing like mommy and me classes, like really, really young. But both my parents were athletes, and in the arts. My dad's a drummer. My mom's an opera singer, and they both did mostly track and field. So when I was growing up, and I'm the oldest, sports were just a given. It's a fun thing for kids to do, especially when you're younger and it's not really competitive yet. It's a good way to meet and make friends. But the biggest takeaway for me playing sports is dealing with quote unquote failure or losses, and discipline. Going to practice. Yeah. Even when I remember my parents, I would be like, but I don't want to go to practice tonight. And they'd be like, you made a commitment. You said that you were going to be on this team and you've got practice. So you're going. And I'd be like, oh, all right. And then I'd go and end up having a great time. But those are things that I see now in just my everyday life, especially working in filmmaking. It's a very collaborative process where you're working with a ton of people, and there is like a hierarchy, just like on a basketball team. You've got your captains, you got your first string, you got your coaches. There's definitely hierarchies that you're working with. So learning how to be a leader, learning how to be a teammate, practicing discipline, how to handle your emotions. I remember as a young girl one time, I was in a basketball game and I was just beating myself up because I missed a free throw and I was crying. And my coach was like,
you were crying because you missed the 3 throw?
Because I was so hard on myself because there was so much pressure. There was so much pressure. It was very competitive. Yeah. I got recruited by the number 1 team in the state to play on their team. And so I came in as like an outsider. And first of all, I wanted playing time, but I was also competitive, I wanted to be the best. And if I was the best on the number 1 team in the state, then that meant I was the best in the state. And I really wanted that. And I just didn't get playing time. Like I had to earn that. And so I'd get in the game and I'd be like, okay, I have to do something. Like I have to do something amazing so that they'll keep playing me. Yeah. And if I missed a shot or, if I had a turnover or any of these things, I would just beat myself up, which is like the worst thing you can do. And then I would be crying and then my coach would pull me out, which would make me cry even more, and, I ended up like learning to hate the sport after a while because of that pressure, but I still learned a lot. Yeah. Still learned a lot.
I mean, I don't think sports are really something you're supposed to take with you into adulthood. That's like for most people that don't play professionally.
I could have, like, it's not. Well, it's a good thing for exercise when you're an adult. Yeah. But other than that, that's really the limitation to it. Like, I think it's good to have things to stay in shape or, to go and do that.
Growing up and having that kind of pressure on yourself.
It's a lot.
Do you think that did something to you negatively overall? Or
it was a huge, no, in fact, I think one of the greatest things I've ever done in my life was, there's some irony in this, but so my mom and still is, but at the time, opera singer. Yeah. And, which just anything in the arts in general, but especially something like classical music or opera, not a huge market for it. Not something that she just went into and is making hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like she was broke and was like, moved to New York with like, $30 in a suitcase and was, couch surfing, sleeping on floors, taking odd jobs, doing whatever she could. And she really didn't want that life for anybody because it was so shitty. And, I think any parent, like they'd want their kids to have some kind of like lucrative, secure kind of job. And I, as a kid, I was playing sports, but I really wanted to do theater and I really wanted to do, I wanted to act. And I remember my mom was like, no, not doing it. Actors are a dime a dozen. You don't even want to waste your time. I was like 9. I was like, I just wanted to do community theater, but she was like, no. And so I wasn't really allowed to do anything like that. Even though I talked about being a ham, I'd do like impressions in front of all the family members and was like, loved being in front of everybody and entertaining everyone. So she really pushed the sports big time. And it got to the point where I even went to a different school because I got recruited by a private school. And so I even like switched schools to go play basketball, and I hated it and I was miserable. And I was like, I don't want to go back. Like I went for my freshman year and it was too much. It was a private Catholic school. I grew up in like ghetto public schools, and I was like, if I have to wear another polo, I swear to God, khakis are not for me, and like I couldn't do it. And so one of my proudest moments from all of this was my parents split up when I was a sophomore, and I was starting on the varsity team as a freshman. I was already getting recruitment letters from Division I schools. And when my parents split up, I was like, I realized that I was doing it for them and not for me. And because everything was like so in flux and all of the shit was everywhere, I just like didn't show up to tryouts that year. And everyone was like, where are you? Like, what are you doing? And I was like, I quit. I don't want to do this anymore.
It just wasn't serving you.
It wasn't serving me. I was doing it for everyone else. That's why all the pressure was there. I wasn't enjoying it. I mean, I loved just to go play basketball with my friends at the Y. But like all that pressure and all this, it was just so much. I was like, fuck this. And then I started taking drama class and I loved it. And I ended up getting cast in like the big senior play and doing all this stuff. And I was like, this is what happens when you listen to your own guidance and not doing things because of, you want to please your parents.
I really love that.
You want to please somebody else or do something. I think a big theme from what we've talked about through all these subjects tonight is worrying more about other people than you do about yourself. Yeah. And when you do that, you lose, that's your compass, and when you're using someone else's compass, you're going in a different direction. You're going in their direction.
And it wasn't like this angsty, like, fuck you, mom thing.
No,
it was like
I mean, there was a part of that, but not in the sports.
It was.
There was definitely, like, I hated my mom at the time because they were getting divorced and I was 16. Oh. You just get angry. But it wasn't that. It was like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Doing for you. It wasn't like a rebellion thing. It was it was a self-serving
Right. I was not doing it for attention or, to get my mom to come back or anything like that. It was just like, I don't want to do this and I'm not going to. And it was a really weird thing because all my friends were on the team and
I think that's such a bold move because you did something that was right for you at the time and your basketball wasn't serving you anymore, your needs anymore. And you were how old?
16. So, sophomore in high school.
That was probably one of the first times you ever made a decision for yourself.
Yep.
That, like, changed the course of your life.
Totally. And it got me, it also around that same time, because I was having so much in drama, I ended up taking a creative writing class, which is where I wrote my first screenplay, which is what got me into film, which is then what got me into film school. And everything really started from that origin story of me being like, I want to do what I want to do now. And going to film school was like it was like I found my people. Yeah. It was like being at Hogwarts. I was like, oh my God, there's other people like me. It was so cool. And I was like, I knew I was in the right place at the right time. I'd never studied. I never gave a shit about school. And I would stay up to like 1, 2, 3 in the morning, like working on stuff because I was just so enamored with all of it. And I loved it so much. And so I'm so glad that I found my passion through all of this.
Wow.
And so just listen to yourself, do what feels right, not because someone else is telling you to do something or putting pressure on you to do something.
I think going back into the feeling sorry for yourself, sometimes like I think I blame my parents for kind of.
It's an easy thing to do.
Yeah, exactly.
But I would say blaming someone else does feel better than blaming yourself. Yeah, and so it is a step in the right direction.
But it's like you don't want to blame your parents and stuff, but at the same time, like you don't want to, I don't know, like it's one of those things where it's like I need to start making the choice for myself to not play basketball anymore and to do drama classes and stuff. And there's still parts of me that are kind of from my family.
Sure.
That's not really who I am or how I want to be.
Absolutely.
And it's like, so I need to like but it's like I didn't make this decision at 15. You know, I'm making it now as
Who
like
cares
an
as
adult
long
to
as you're
stop
making
playing
it?
basketball and
Yeah,
to
yeah,
start
yeah.
doing, you know.
It doesn't matter. And I mean, there's still things that I do to this day that I
Sure.
find out that I'm doing it for
Yeah.
other reasons. But I think that it is a step in the right direction as long as you don't stay there
Yeah.
to blame someone else.
Yeah.
Okay? Because blaming someone else is better than blaming yourself.
Yeah.
But don't stay there. Recognize, then you have to move past and you have to realize that they did their best.
Yeah.
They do love you. They are only a product of their own upbringing and the people that, taught them what they taught them, and to forgive, let go, and then move on. And that's a huge part, I feel like, of just being a young adult in general is recognizing that and becoming your own person by shedding the skin of, who your parents maybe wanted you to be or whatever. So very true, very right.
We do. Do you think that we live like our generation is sort of like a victim culture, like a victimizing culture that like kind of, I mean, there's like that whole trope in like shows and movies and stuff where there's like this like bitchy, like white teenage girl and that sort of thing who has like no issues, but she's always pissed off all the time because she's this hormonal teenage girl and stuff. But it's like, I feel like our generation is just a bunch of that, Well, and I'm not even I'm totally a part of it. I'm totally a part of the problem and stuff. So I can kind of say it without being malicious towards other women, I guess, or other people. We want to take responsibility for ourselves. We don't want to be victims.
Sure.
We don't want to victimize ourselves. But at the same time, like, how do we acknowledge the ways we've been hurt and the ways that we've been victimized, but, and not,
not be a victim.
Yeah.
Like,
and
okay. I think I'm seeing what you're saying. I think I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Okay.
First things first, like everything really does happen for a reason. And so if you can find value even in stuff that wasn't pleasant, right? So something that maybe you did feel victimized or something where you were the victim, there's still, if you can look at it and see the value in it. So I got dumped kind of out of the blue by someone that
was this your long-term relationship? Oh, okay. And it was out of the blue?
It wasn't like, I knew that we would probably end up splitting up, but it was like we were going to do a long distance thing while he was in school for a year in Chicago. And he'd been gone maybe 2 weeks. And it was like, I can't do this anymore. And it just like was like out of nowhere. I was like, wait, what? So that, I went through all the stages, right?
So you were jilted.
I was. It was just, it was like, I felt like that would probably happen like 3-4 months down the road when we try to do this long distance thing and But like 2 weeks in, it was like, what? So I went through all the stages, right? I was really depressed at first. And that probably is the worst feeling. And then I got mad, which feels way better than being depressed, right? Because that feels a little more empowering, right? Like, it's way better to want to punch a hole in the wall than to just like, whatever, I don't care.
Yeah.
So I got mad, I blamed him for a lot of it. But then I had to move past the really harsh negative feelings, and that's the big turning point. So that's objectivity. That's taking a step back and going, okay, what's really going on here, and it's like, okay, I feel abandoned. It's recognizing like really how you're feeling, and taking ownership. Like, you know what? I wasn't being a great girlfriend, honestly. There were things about it that I need to take ownership for.
Yeah.
Because there's no such thing as like full victimhood. I don't think. I mean, unless you're just like la 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 walking down the street and someone just bashes you over the head.
You know what? Maybe I shouldn't have walked down that dark alleyway.
Sure. Yeah. There's
maybe
things.
Next time I won't walk down that dark alleyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. I totally get that. And it's
not
and it's okay to acknowledge that.
It's okay.
Don't walk down dark alleyways.
Yeah. Like make smart choices.
Yeah.
And like bad things still can happen. Whatever. But I realized like, hey, this is actually a good thing. I was also patient with myself, like saying this, I was with this person for 4.5, 5 years. I'm not just going to get over it in a couple days. So it's like, just be prepared. It's going to hurt. But it will be over soon. Like I'm not always going to feel this shitty. And I tell myself that with a lot of things. Like being stressed out at work or going through something with family or whatever. It's like, this too shall pass. Like, I just have to kind of sit in the filth for a little bit, but it'll be gone soon. But I think the biggest thing, if you want to move past victimhood, the way to empower yourself is to recognize that there is value there. Because really, victimhood just, it feels like something's been taken from you and you have nothing left, you know?
Yeah.
But if you realize, no, there was something here that I had, you know, that taught me, you know, how to stand on my own 2 feet. That taught me to do the things that I wanted to do. Again, not because of someone else, but because it's what I wanted to do. You know, that got me to meet a whole bunch of new people, make new friends, you know, get a new job. Like, so many good things came out of it. Yeah, it sucks, but I'm not going to do that thing that a lot of people do where they want to get pity because it's some attention is better than no attention, right? But I'd rather have empowerment than pity. So I'm not going to say he broke my heart, he ran out on me. I'm not going to say shit like that. Like, he made the decisions that were right for him at the time. He didn't handle it well. He'll admit to that. And I didn't handle it well. Whatever, you know, like, it's over. So I can either choose to feel empowered by it or I can choose to feel victimized by it. And that's a choice. And we all have choices. Like, no one can take your, you know, your freedom of thought. Yeah. You know, so yeah, I hope I answered that question.
No, you did.
It's a big one.
Thank you. I think with like victimhood, I guess with me for like with guys and that sort of thing, sometimes I feel like, and I think why having a pity party for yourself can be dangerous for you. I mean, if you're a woman, I mean, even if you're a man,
anybody,
is that there are people that are exploitative of that.
Sure.
And I feel like with me, like there have been guys that it's like they see me throwing a pity party, and then they're like they're abusive, you know,
Sure.
antennaes come up.
This is
ticking, and then they're like, and they see, I'm just going to convince her more that she's a victim.
Yeah.
And so that way she knows that I'm the one that's feeding that delusion that she has for herself, that she's this, you know, wounded victim who, you know, needs somebody.
Yeah.
And
well, this is the basic premise of the law of attraction that really made sense to me was like attracts like.
Sure.
So play the victim, more victim situations, victimizing situations will come to you, or people that will make you a victim or whatever. Feel empowered, more empowering experiences will come to you. And I mean, that's really boiling it down into a very, you know, fine powder, but that is the general idea and so you're very, very right.
Yeah. I guess like a year ago, I started kind of being more open about, you know, private experiences and stuff.
Sure.
And then I started kind of, I don't know, like, it's just like that whole, like, I started being real and I really liked being real. And then it just sort of kind of came out on the surface. And so I had like, you know, this really great facade that I really
felt safe behind.
And I loved my facade.
Sure.
You know, I really loved who I was being my facade.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that a lot of
people
have to let go of in order to get better. Yeah. And so when I started kind of existing outside of my facade, I realized I was actually like a really sad, miserable person. And, you know, and I wasn't like this Barbie doll anymore. And I was just like this sad, unhappy person. And then, but I was still,
at least it was real.
Yeah. Yeah. But I was still doing a lot of the same behaviors like dating and clubbing and, you know, and all of that stuff, but being real. And then it kind of, and then it sort of, you know, backfired and stuff. But I noticed that I started attracting this new brand of guy where it's like the helper, you know, and it's like the guy who's like, you need to cut off your family, you know, like, or that's
like trying to like help you out.
Yeah. And it's like, you need to stop, just block all of your family members on social media and block all their phone numbers and never speak to your family again. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. And it's just, I have this theory that people who are putting victimhood out there to protect themselves.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what any kind of victimhood. If you're putting it out there to protect yourself, that's going to backfire.
Yeah.
Because there are just people that are going to see the victimhood that you're projecting out there and exploit that.
Sure.
And And it just makes the situation so much worse.
It doesn't really fix or change anything.
No. And
yeah.
And so it's just like how do you like combat victimhood, I guess, without feeling, sorry for yourself, and such a hard thing to balance.
It's okay to feel your feelings, right? Mm-hmm. However they come up, but then it's how you go from there. Mm-hmm. So if you feel like a victim, recognize that, realize that, but remind yourself you're not a victim. Mm-hmm. You still have all the power in the world because you have the power to make your own decisions.
Yeah.
So feel your feelings, acknowledge your feelings. They're there for a reason, and then do whatever you can to feel better and move forward. Because yesterday is over. There's something you can do about it now.
Yeah.
But you can make changes that are going to affect tomorrow and the days after and your future. So, make the decisions that can positively impact your tomorrow so that kind of shit doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
So the general question being, how do you protect yourself from bad dates?
Yes.
And the answer I'm going to say might not be the answer that you want to hear. Okay. I don't think that you can protect yourself from bad dates. What I think you can do is how you react to things.
Sure.
And chances are, by the time things get to a place where it's officially bad, there are probably some things going along the way where we, because I've been in these situations, could have stepped away or could have been like, to use the Aziz Ansari example, right? Mm-hmm. Where, a woman went on a date with Aziz and it wasn't going very well and she felt like he wasn't really respecting her or listening to her. And I remember there being a specific example of like him ordering a wine that she didn't even like or something like that, or didn't even ask. And it's like, you have, in this example, communicate what kind of wine you want, or like, I actually don't drink white wine. But if you don't say anything, no one can read your mind. Right. And so there's probably some things that are going along throughout the date where you do have the opportunity to speak up or to, I don't know about you, but I have some friends at this point where I can text and be like, call me and get me out of this date right now. There's ways to handle it where you don't have to be like, listen, asshole, I'm done. You don't have to like be that aggressive in their face, but like, I don't think there's anything wrong with lying in those situations and being like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, but there's a leak in my apartment and I gotta go. Mm-hmm. And because I've been in situations where I'm kind of like, yeah, I'm getting these vibes, right? And then like we're essentially like hooking up and we're like getting naked, and I'm like, this is not what I thought I was gonna see, and it's bad.
Oh, he had a micro penis,
or maybe not even the micro penis, but just like, oh, I thought like I'm not attracted to this anymore, like. Maybe they're super hairy. I'm not into hair. Or, small penis or whatever. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to have sex with this anymore.
Oh, because he got naked?
Yeah.
And you didn't like and when you saw? Oh, no. Oh, how horrible for him. That poor man.
Poor, but it's like, I'm not going to feel
terrible.
I'm not going to, but it's, No,
I'm kidding.
There's been times where I have gone through with it because I was like, oh, I feel bad. Yeah. But the truth is, if I'm not... like tough, sorry, like I'm not, if that happened to me and you saw me naked and didn't want, the difference though is like guys will probably fuck anything, so I don't think that's like really something that is like, it'd have to be a real doozy. But I've gotten to the place where I'm like, well, it's an understandable thing. I mean, I'm only seeing you with your clothes on in a dark bar, and then we get back to my place and we're getting naked and I'm like, this isn't doing it for me, I'm not turned on by this, what do you do? So I don't really know the answer to that. I think the thing is just be like, you know what? I'm sorry. This is the worst, and you can hate me. You don't ever have to talk to me again. But I think I've changed my mind. I don't want to do this anymore. Sorry. And you got to have that really awkward, like, let me go put my clothes back on and see you to the door. But which feels worse, that or waking up the next day feeling like a piece of shit for having sex with someone that you didn't want to have sex with?
I don't know. Honestly, both sound horrible.
Yeah.
But but sometimes you just have to be assertive and just have to do what you have to do.
Yeah. Right? One of my guy friends told me to try, because I do tend to like cannonball into the deep end, and he's like, make out with him first and like, touch his pant, like get a vibe, or like put your hand under his shirt. You don't have to just like get naked and jump in. And I'm like, okay, that is a good point. I don't need to do that. I can. Because it's a lot easier to be like, you know what? I think I'm just going to go to bed when clothes are still on.
Yeah.
Than to be like fucking naked I mean, like, yeah, suddenly I just don't want to do this anymore, you know?
With sex and consent and that sort of thing, with talking openly about comedy and that sort of thing, and talking openly about sex in comedy,
Sure,
can be create problems. I think I'm noticing that could create problems, and
sure.
I just sort of have this epiphany that this podcast isn't gonna protect me from those scenarios, you know. And I don't know why, but I had like this, I'm going to do a Me Too podcast and then no man will ever fuck with me ever again for the rest of my life.
That's interesting.
That was, and I realized, oh, that's actually like not what's going to happen. And I'm still going to have to, it really is like, when it comes down to it, you really are just going to have to kick somebody out of your apartment.
Yep.
And
you're going to have to stand up for yourself.
Yeah.
But the cool thing about the podcast, though, hopefully, is that by sharing experiences and sharing lessons, is that hopefully it would empower you to be in those situations and to know that it's okay to put your foot down or to say no. Or, you know, not everything, like I've said this a couple times, I think tonight, but not everything has to be this big assertive, fuck you, get out of my place. Usually it's just like, hey, I'm sorry, I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I'm just suddenly just not feeling up to it anymore.
And maybe the fact that I don't even see it that way, and I'm not even visualizing the situation, and I'm visualizing it the former way.
Sure.
That I'm visualizing just this action of just, you know what, I'm tired and it's time for you to leave. Good night, sir.
Yeah.
I see it as being like this.
Big blow up.
Yeah, literally. Like, I have to,
it's an understandable fear to have. That is kind of the worst case scenario, is that it does get combative or confrontational. But that doesn't, chances are, I'm not saying that those experiences don't happen, but if that's your expectation, usually our expectations happen. And, you know, I think if you're self-aware, and maybe you even, I don't think there's anything wrong with also communicating your boundaries before you even get to that point, you know, of being like, you know, hey, I want you to come upstairs.
Yeah.
I want to make out a little bit. Like, I don't know if I want to do much more than that. Or whatever.
Yeah, of course. Being totally
just being upfront, like, you know, I think sometimes like we really want to be sexy and we want to like do, you know, like, yeah, just come upstairs and all this stuff. And then sometimes I'm like, oh, wait, I shot the gun before I even had the bullet loaded. I don't know if that makes any sense, but you know, it's like, just, I've always appreciated the guys that talk to me that way and communicate that with me, where they're like, you know, one of the best situations I was ever in was this guy. He was young. He was, I don't know, like 4 or 5 years younger than me. And I was like, you're too young, like, sir, you know, but like we were friends, we knew each other, and I could just tell that he wanted to make a move or whatever. And I was like, well, I'm going to bed now. And I was like shutting the door, and I just hear, wait. And I'm like, fuck. And I like open the door, and he's like, I really want to kiss you. And I was like, oh, I knew it. And he was like, come on. He's like, look, you want to kiss me too, right? And I was like, well, yeah, but that doesn't matter because you're too young. I think he was like 22. And, you know, I don't know. It doesn't matter. And it was like, to me, it was too young for me or whatever. He was like, well, all right, how about this? He's like, we make out. And if you don't like it, you just go, okay, I'm going to bed now. And I'll be like, all right, good night. Aww. But if you do like it, then like we can keep making out. Maybe we can even touch each other. And I was like, okay, you've made a good argument. You've appealed to my intellect, sir. So we made out, and I was like, wow, this is really great. And then we ended up having sex, and it was awesome. But the way that he was just kind of like, look, there's no pressure here. Like, if you don't want to make out with me, if you want to go to bed, okay? But I want you to know this is what I want to do. And like, I guess just putting himself out there and then being very honest, like I felt safe to be like, okay, I do want to make out with you, but I'm also concerned about your age, you know? And like, we just had this like really blunt conversation. It was so refreshing. And now all my guy friends, when they're like, how should I handle this? I'm like, let me tell you about this method that worked so well for me. But that takes guts to put yourself out there. Because I could have been like, nah, dude, good night, and just shut the door. And he would have been like out there on the couch by himself, like, fuck. But that's kind of the risk I guess you have to be willing to take.
And he took that risk, and
he did, and it paid off.
Yeah.
But you know, I just think bluntness is sexy. And because the worst possible thing, like I said, is that you put yourself out there and then they say no, or I'm not interested. And that's not a bad thing, you know, like you probably just dodged a bullet then, because you don't want to go upstairs and start like making a move with someone that doesn't want to do that with you, you know? So yeah.
Cool. Thank you. All right. Sorry. Thank you for that last subject.
No, you're very welcome. And you got to quit saying you're sorry.
Oh, I do that a lot, huh? Yeah, my therapist keeps telling me to do that. She's like, why are you apologizing to me?
You got nothing to apologize for.
I know, like, I'll like start crying about something and I'm like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
like, I'm
this
your
is what you should be doing. Yeah.
Just happy to do another 20 minutes.
Yeah. No. This is the stuff I like talking about. You know, for me, doing this kind of thing, I was talking about earlier, like how do you get out of victimhood or how do you get out of those things? It's finding the value in your experiences, and having these kinds of talks definitely brings value to those experiences that I've had. So thank you for having me on. Thank you for letting me talk about this stuff. Thank you for opening up and being vulnerable and doing this. This is awesome.
Thank you.
Way to go. If you like the sound of my voice, I do have my own podcast. It's called Single AF. We're on Instagram. Single
AF?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. That's adorable.
Yeah. Single AF Pod is our Instagram handle. And it's really fun. Me and my buddy Nick, we talk about relationships, dating, a lot of kind of what we've touched on tonight, sex, how to handle just this winding, turning mess of a road that is finding hopefully your mate or whatever that your long-term intention is. So check that out. And thanks for having me.
Thank you.